Oh, wow. Yeah, definitely. We had spring.
We fell down the stairs about 3 months ago, 2 months ago. I'll be training this time. Yeah.
What's his name?
Okay, we are streaming now. So welcome to this meeting of License for Protection Committee. And first item, notice before you webcast, I advise the meeting to note that this meeting will be webcast live or subsequent broadcast by the Council's meeting YouTube site, and that members of the press and public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. Declarations of interest, members are reminded members to tell all relevant monitoring interests of the meeting. The disclosure of community interest. Any declarations will be recorded in this meeting. I've had an apology from Councillor Mary Locke. Due to hospital. No. Okay, thank you. Item 4. For your agenda. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome Councillor Mike Ward to the committee. Welcome, Mike. I think you've served on licensing before, haven't you?
Yes, I have, yes.
I know you're a very experienced member, so although we will have to train you because we're all required to do that, as you know. But welcome anyway.
Thank you.
I look forward to working with you. And as you know, I have extended an invitation to join the working group that we've set up on particularly rapid spaces.
Which unfortunately I can't attend because I've got the training that.
Right, yeah, on the 24th, yes, but I hope the other dates are okay. Again, if you want to briefing on any of the matters there, to let us know. So welcome. Okay, thank you then, colleagues. And I now move on to the minutes. To confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of September 2021. Agreed? Agreed. So, item 6, happy carrying and private hire delegations for the reports, and that's a report of Sir Julian expenditure.
Yes, as you're aware, Chair, thank you. There were certain measures taken during COVID where certain delegations and concessions were made in terms of paying of licences and continuation of delegations to officers to deal with matters that were reserved for previously licensing subcommittees. This report seeks to either decide whether the delegations should continue in the current form as information from COVID, or whether certain delegations should be returned to subcommittees as they were previously. And if that was so from February 2022, officers feel that this works efficiently, considering delegated matters, and if there are any issues of concern, they do still come to subcommittee to the members of the report.
Any points members want to raise?
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask, obviously, before we decide on this, just in terms of general practice, what other councils across the West Midlands do at the moment? I'm just curious to know what the current process is.
What any comparative information?
I haven't got any comparative information with me. I think we need to just, in this particular case, without comparative information, whether the processes we put in place work for us in Birmingham, and whether there are any issues. Obviously, we're compliant legally with either two options. This enables us to free up time for members to consider other matters and subcommittees, and obviously we are supportive of doing that in our role, supporting members.
We can obviously check that, particularly with our fellow members in the West Midlands. And of course, what we could do in the context of the fact we've got elections, I think Councillor Edwin was going to make a point about that.
No, Chair, you carry on.
We could agree to maintain the current delegations till February, if you like, which I think is the time period. Then revisit that in February, and then when the new committee is convened after the elections, we can give the new committee an opportunity to do its say as well. So that might be the way forward. But that would also allow us to gather this information in February. Quite associated with Paris. Yeah. We agree that's the way forward. Yeah.
Great.
And can I just say to reassure the committee, any sensitive cases can still be referred to members, particularly to myself and I could say to officers, no, we need to have a policy, so that is possible. But if we agree to proceed as we've just stated, then we can give you further information and everything to. Okay. Thank you very much. That's all. Again, I think the students on the next one, street trading as well. Street trading. Sorry, I didn't. Well, I think we're amending that because we don't want, we really want to revisit the matter in February. That's when we want to come back to it. So we may give us some range. Yeah.
So we should be considering as well the consideration for the rest of the details in paragraph 6, which relates to application private hire licences, where we enable them to calculate the renewal. That will run until April 2022.
Right.
So we could own that and bring that together with the 44
Okay.
information.
So Chair, if I may help, but actually the recommendation 2.1, that I think what you're saying is that you'd like to confirm the delegation until February 2022, subject to the annual reporting with all other delegations, and that a report detailing arrangements in other authorities also be provided. I think that's then 2A, 2.1A, that's what we said. And then the second one stands on its own in relation to the hackney carriage and private hire licences. If you wish that on that same format, then we can actually include that a similar word.
Yes.
So we do need a formal committee agreement for that.
Yes.
I think we're saying that during the course of the discussion.
Yes, of course, yeah. So does that mean a legal frame? Thank you for that. That is quite right. Okay, so that's the basis on which we'll proceed. Thank you very much for that. So we are on to street trading and fees and charges.
And Chair, as members are aware, we brought fees and charges to the committee last year. These are the fees and charges relating to the new financial year 2022 and 23 for street trading. We need to be compliant with the legislation that requires us to introduce both an application fee and an actual licence fee. It is appropriate that we cover all reasonable costs. And in doing so, we look to actually slow down our financial accounts this year. The proposed fees that we give are detailed in Appendix 1. And as you can see from those fees, all but 2 fees have gone down. We have introduced a new fee for renewal, because obviously last year was the first year of policies. We haven't put a renewal fee. That renewal fee supports the policy presumption of renewal for any trader who's traded for 12 months, and no issues have been raised about their consent. So they will be able to use a fee of £271. The fees for annual city centre licence fee and annual outer city licence fee have gone up slightly, and that's to account for the regular inspections weekly of those premises and offices as well, to ensure illegal street traders aren't operating throughout the city. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ledge.
Thank you, Chair. Just confirmation, if I can have, Chair, that these fees will take effect from the 1st of December this year and terminate or end on the 31st of March 2023. Is that correct?
They would take place in December this year, 2021, to allow people to apply and pay the new fee for the consent starting on the 1st of April and run to the 31st of March 2023. We will be reviewing the fees again this time next year to ensure the fees are appropriate for the following year.
From the 1st of April?
Yeah, 2023. So they'll be in place until December 2022, when we'll change them to the following financial year.
Because we hold an annual review basis.
Yeah.
Any problems in committee? Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. Other questions about the reports or points?
I think it's a good news report.
Yes, I think obviously there are some reductions there, and obviously we now know we've got more information about how the system is working on the ground. Because I appreciate officers are doing a bit of a cross-trail. New set of fees last time. This is necessarily adjustment. So are you happy to endorse recommendations 2, 1, 2, 2? Agreed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're on to financial monitoring now, David Jones. Over to
Thank you, Chair. So, good morning, committee. So this is your Q2 financial report. A copy was circulated with the, but I'll just pick out the main points of the report. So could I ask you to, just to start with, to look at the third page of the report. The budget is reduced by a net £6,000 this quarter, and that's just due to the centralisation of postage and post-room recharges. So the cost is also going to be centralised, so it doesn't represent any pressure for your services. The budget is £6.673 million at the end of Q2. The actual net expenditure was £3.93 million. And as an aside, that gives you a year-to-date variation of £372,000 pressure, which is actually much improved from the last quarter. And the agreed forecast is stated just a bit further down page 3, and that's for a year-end pressure of £323,000. So again, that's improved from the previous quarter. It's not expected to change much in the rest of this financial year. And as I said, that's a net overall pressure. So within that is a £484,000 pressure that just relates to the COVID work that the services have been involved in. So it's probably better if I just explain that by going through and splitting up between COVID and non-COVID, and just to give a bit more detail on what's actually involved in the COVID side as well. So the COVID pressure is made up of a number of factors. The registry office is due to additional staff hours and additional measures that have had to be done at the registry office to make it accessible to the public. And those combined cause a pressure of £142,000 for this financial year. Coroners, you've got additional coroners, investigators, additional room hire because of to hold the inquest, they need social distancing, and also the post-mortems themselves cost more individually because more tests and more measures are needed during those post-mortems. So it's £123,000 pressure for this year. in trading standards, there's two factors there. One is that there's additional pressure from the changes to how court cases are being heard, and how court procedures are being followed. So there's a lower recovery of court costs, even in successful cases. And also trading standards have been leading on several fraud investigations into business growth with some success. Just on the non-COVID side, there's that 18,000 pressure in Colliers, which is the service level agreement we have with another local authority. On the plus side, there's pest control expecting to make a small surplus, and that's the difference between the additional agency staff they're bringing in and the additional fees that those staff are generating. And register office are also improving their income generation as well. I think that's where weddings have become blocked and there's a pent-up demand for those. So there's a lot of evidence of mitigation and surpluses on the non-COVID side, but also some of those COVID pressures are actually reduced in the last few months as well. We'll just ask you to turn or scroll to nearly the end of the report. There's on Appendix 2, we have the breakdown of licensing. And this was a new appendix we brought into the last committee. It just shows the actual spend and the actual income, and therefore demonstrating the ring fence within each category of license type. And you can see taxis are still a concern, but street trading is actually holding its own, and that does suggest that the fees for 2021-22 in that first year of the policy were actually set about right. And that was mentioned in the report you just heard as well. I'll just ask you to scroll along to Appendix 3. So this is your grant services. You can see illegal lending and the regional intelligence. They look close to being in line with intelligence. He's on track. There's just a timing delay with the receipt of the second quarter income. So it has been claimed, it hasn't been received yet. On that final page, you've got Appendix 4, which is your reserves and the balances. Licensing, you can see is in deficit, and that's been reported to you a few times, and it's just over £1 million. And this was also highlighted in the outturn report that's come to you previously as well. Now, this will need to be considered in the next fees and charges calculation. We continue to recommend that at least a third of the balance, if it's a surplus or a deficit, a third should be incorporated each time into that fees calculation. So those are the main points. Just to summarise, so the current position shows a net pressure, and that's mainly in your income budgets. Forecast is for a year-end pressure of £323,000 overall pressure this forecast. That is an improvement on the previous quarter, and as before, the majority of the financial pressure is attributable to the work being done on COVID. So again, I hope that was useful and clear. If you do have any questions, then I'll do my best to answer them. If it's more complex, it's fine, but I might have to come back.
Thank you very much. Councillor Levy?
Chair, £500,000 under the heading COVID-19 pressures. We understand that we've gone through a pandemic, but it would be nice with little bullet points, one-liners, exactly, what each of the pressures have mounted up to create that 480-odd £1,000 overspend or projected overspend. I know that within the report, it talks about we're not getting money back from the courts, from trading standards, which is, one of the key elements. But when it says coroner services, 141,000, does that mean we've employed a couple of more pathologists down at the courts, at the mortuaries, or what? So if someone's got some answers,
It would be useful, I think, to have a given breakdown of the COVID costs. I think that was a very helpful explanation, by the way, just given David, given the COVID costs, so again, a consistent factor as around 400,000.
Chair, we can do that. We'll give you a detailed breakdown. There's been all sorts of elements that attribute to that, not least, I think 200,000 of that is the decommissioning of the regional mortuary, which we committed to back in April 2020. That's right, at that time, March 2020. But happy to bring back the detailed report. I think that we've been trying to minimise as much as possible our COVID expenditure, obviously. So where we have made some forecasts, we're now sort of the sorts of costs that were quite heavy for us were things like security at cemeteries, which I think was something that we probably didn't anticipate at the start, but we needed that in order to ensure there weren't too many people attending funerals. But I'll come back with detail when Dave's got that to hand.
I haven't got it down, Chair, but I think that the written response will probably get more use. I know coroners, they have paid for additional hours and registrars as well, so they train people who are on part-time contracts and extended their hours to try and deal with the extra workload. So that is a contribution to the cost.
We have no ultimate control over that.
We're under an obligation under the Act to actually pay the coroner's costs as they demand. So if there is an increase in service, they get an increase in staff and we have to fund that. We fund 84% of that cost, 16% of the cost is funded by Solihull Metropolitan Borough Council as part of the coronial area. It is something that the coroner is acutely aware of and actually tries to ensure that the costs are minimised. But there is undoubtedly a significant increase in the number of cases going to the coroner at the moment. And we've had some very significant cases that really need to be national public inquiries. One involving a local surgeon that has actually really increased costs for the service quite substantially, and we're making representations to government on that basis.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you, Chair. And apologies for being late this morning. My question is about training standards. It says here, obviously, you've got less cases because of COVID, but there's just one line apart. It says, in addition, the team are also spearheading several investigations onto COVID-19 related financial fraud. If you've got less normal cases, I was just, that's probably a surprise because a lot of us have probably heard hearsay of, well, there's been quite some widely reported ones actually. There was one in Telford of an old clubbing ground that the MP went on Facebook bragging about, and if you turned out the clubbing ground hadn't been around for 10 years. So I would suggest that just like the lady has said with the breakdown of the details, I'd like to know more information about the COVID-19 financial fraud, because I suspect there's probably a lot of that going on.
Yeah, we might not have to time that accordingly because it's currently sub judice. So actually giving you that there are cases going to court, not dates that are some months away.
Through the chair, I can say that a number of people have been charged with obtaining COVID grant fraudulently. And so it would be very limited about what we can say in respect to those particular investigations. But clearly those weren't investigations that we were anticipating. We've involved in through the specialism and knowledge skill sets of being served.
What we will do, Chair, as soon as those cases we are able to report, we'll bring you back all details of that. You get those in the case anyway, we'll do something special on those fraud cases for you.
I'm grateful for that because we are still in strange times. And this is what and I know the council has been active on this issue. And so we'll have that information in course. Thanks. Other points colleagues would like to raise? It's not the, just on taxi net expenditure, which is the highest amount.
What accounts for that, given that obviously our objective is to balance the expenditure, isn't it? Because, you know, we can't make profit by what we're seeking to break even. Is this again COVID distortions?
Yeah, it's certainly a factor that the less licenses being taken up in the last 12 months. So the income is down on what we would expect it to be.
Chair, if you recall, we're required to break even over a 3-year period. So actually, that's why we have balances. Sometimes we make a small surplus and then we balance out those other areas because we vary things according to that as well.
And certainly, I mean, media reports suggest that a lot of taxi drivers have really not come back to the trade yet.
Yeah.
Is that the impression? Is that confirmed in your experience?
We will find that they're coming back, but obviously their opportunities is limited. So they will certain agents and not really particularly in their position.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anything else colleagues would like to raise on the financial report? If not, can we accept the report?
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Dan, for that comprehensive report. Okay, we're on to an item that was requested at last meeting, which is begging and traffic lights, community safety. And I'm pleased to welcome Pam Harris from Community Safety to talk to her report.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I won't talk in detail about the report, it's available and there for you to read, but just a bit of a summary. So the report is based on a request from this committee, which is some data and information and numbers and background in relation to the increase that we're now starting to see. It also relates and shows work that we're now starting to around partnership delivery around this particular issue, and then also provides a report. It provides details about the powers that we have available within the City Council and also the partnership that we're doing with West Midlands Police. Just to note that within the community safety team, we do have 2 officers who are grant funded, so they're not permanent officers within the City Council who are grant funded and who work in the city centre. And we have now secured extra grant funding through the Government Office to have 2 officers that will go outside the city centre. It is an issue that is growing, and we are seeing it in different locations, in particular as this committee has picked up around traffic lights. But also it's increasing around supermarkets and where we find parking pay and display. Initially, anyone who is identified as begging or sleeping, we do recommend that the first port call is always support services, not enforcement. But we do now have in place and have had that since October 2020. A fortnightly partnership meeting where we will look at enforcement, but only after it's been referred to us by support services. So once we're absolutely certain that an individual has received all the services possible, then we will look at enforcement. It's worth noting as a committee that we have no powers to actually stop begging, and the powers that we use are when we get begging becomes an antisocial behaviour issue, and it's those powers that we actually use. The only power available to actually stop begging sits with West Midlands Police, but it's a very antiquated piece of legislation which has had a second hearing in the House of Commons with the view to have it upheld. So we do try our best to work with all the support services and engage and not the instance which becomes either a criminal or a anti-social behaviour issue. I'm happy to take any questions, comments.
Sure. Councillor Shaw, yes.
I don't know whether to make big words, because I think that when people stand in traffic lights and they've got a cop in mind or what it might be in mind, it's very intimidating. And I don't mean this to be sexist, and I know somebody's going to pick it up from sexist. I know that when the white goes past, she stays back away from the lights till they go green, because she's worried to put the lights on red. I was coming to the town of Bristol Road the other day, and there was one standing there, and the police got next to me. And I said, it cannot be right that he can go there or she can go into the middle of traffic, knocking on people's windows, asking for money. His answer to me was, we can't let them pay. Personally, I don't accept it. Because if I was away my sports bike in the middle of the road and I stopped the car, they'd arrest me. We're all on the truck. And I think that when people are begging, look, what really concerns me, this is organised, this is the one people going out in the morning, or a couple of people, you know, they're saying to Johnny, I'll meet you up the road in an hour's time, and you say you're getting on. I've seen people drop up in vans, and they took them towards their area because their area ain't doing so well, or whatever it may be. To me, that's one-day slavery. And surely if that's what's happening, that can't be allowed to be right. And surely if the police know it's happening, are they actually going after the gangsters or whatever you want to call them, gangsters or whatever name you want to give them? Somebody will get hurt one night. And when somebody gets killed, or something happens to somebody in the car, and you can see something, yeah, you can write the paper, and then can't go on the front of the mail, you know. This can't be allowed to go on. And I know people are saying things are in Parliament, and they're not talking all about that, does you know. I'm sorry, but it does, you know. I used to think, by the time it gets there, somebody will have been hurt badly or even killed. And then we'll always sit, well, you'll always sit on that, well, you know, and say, what do we do? Well, they've got to do it now. Tomorrow is going to be too late. And I think the chief constable is, I don't know, get in his car or walk around, jump on a bus, and actually see what's happening in the traffic lights. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other comments, Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. And Councillor Sharp, I couldn't agree more. I'm really, really happy that we've brought this to committee actually, because there's a taboo, isn't there, with helping homeless people, and I think speaking here, it's an issue you don't want to try and raise in case you're seen as being uncompassionate. But you are totally right about modern slavery, and that's precise. I've seen it myself. Every time you come off the A38, you're there, and it is intimidating. It's absolutely intimidating. You talk about when they're allowed to knock the windows. I mean, I was doing a property clear on Sunday at Morrison's, and you're not even allowed to shake the tin. You're not allowed to harass customers at Morrison's. You have to just stand there and wait for them to come up. But they are allowed to come straight up to a car window and tap, and the police say they're not going to do anything about that. But the fundamental point here is modern slavery. There are shifts going on. You are totally right. They do go down there and stuff around. And I think they are not. It needs to be looked into, because I think if we turn a blind eye to this, because we think, oh, we don't want to be seen as being uncompassionate, then, you know, very, very evil and sinister things are happening behind the scenes in our neighbourhood. And so I do agree with you completely. That's a shock. But if the Westminster Police do need to step on this and do a proper investigation.
Just back to Scott, Councillor Levy, and then I'll come back to you. Councillor
Chair, it seems wherever we have slow-moving traffic, these people are around collecting money. I'll give you a personal experience. I was going to one stop in Perry Bar, and a woman was walking up and down the slow-moving traffic at the traffic lights, collecting. I went into one stop, came out, came into the city centre, and guess what, Chair? The very same woman who'd been collecting in Perry Bar was at Snow Hill collecting outside St Chad's Cathedral. The very same woman. She couldn't have walked from Perry Bar in the time that I'd taken to drive to Snow Hill. So there is clearly something awry, and something does need doing, Chair. It needs doing corporately. It's not just this committee, it's the whole of Birmingham City Council. We've got the Commonwealth Games coming to the city next summer, and I certainly hope that we have something in place throughout the whole of the city of Birmingham before we end up being ridiculed across the world as a begging city, because that's what we've become in a very short space of time. Can I suggest, Chair, that we get the Cabinet member and his team of senior officers to respond to this problem and to come to this committee?
I'd certainly be sympathetic to that. Let me ask Pam to respond.
Obviously, I can't talk for West Midlands Police, but I will happily take that comment back. And we are in regular communications with them to try and work on this problem. And they are a main partner within the fortnightly tasking group that we now have in place. With regards to the modern slavery concerns, obviously this is something that we monitor, and as I've highlighted in the report, we have a modern slavery coordinator within the community safety team that links in with all the relevant partners, including Rockley, who oversee modern slavery citywide, countrywide, to have a look at these issues. I would absolutely agree with everything that's been said here today. We do see evidence of car drop-offs. Not all of them are connected to modern slavery. We are aware of certain family units that use it as a form of income that isn't connected to modern slavery. But yes, we are aware that there may be association to modern slavery. And when we have the evidence and work with partners, they are progressed and they are dealt with. So I just wanted to assure the committee that when it comes to any act of that, there are powers in motion to actually deal with that. I'm not going to sit here and say that we deal with it all 100% and get it all accurate every single time, because that's not the case. And with regards to the begging of traffic lights, it's one of the most problematic and difficult ones to deal with, because as people see us approach, they do scatter. West Midlands Police are the only ones that have the powers to take names and addresses. If it's refused with those, then we don't have the power to get them to give the name and address or detain them. So it is a complex situation, and it is one we're trying our best to resolve with the resources that we've got to look at it. It isn't a priority for West Midlands Police, of course. They have higher priorities, but they are aware of the issue and are working with us closely. But I'm more than happy to take the comments back, Chair, to West Midlands Police and have that further conversation. And it may also be worth noting that tomorrow we're at overview scrutiny with the same report and also the Community Safety Partnership annual report, and the Cabinet member is aware of this and has approved and seen this report also. But it's also to highlight that this doesn't all sit just with community safety, so it's not just that Cabinet member that sits with between. We're only one very, very small department within the whole of the City Council that we want to this particular issue.
I think you understand the constraint, but it seems to me that the use of public spaces protection orders might be the way forward on this. So what I'd like to do is write to the Cabinet member on the lines Councillor Lenny has suggested, and invite him to continue this dialogue, particularly raising obviously the issue of modern slavery, which is the wider context, but also where the public space protection orders might be applied on some of these junctions, which would enhance police practice and the ability to put up signage and so on, and set that this behaviour might be tolerated. Because I entirely agree with colleagues, it is not acceptable. And there are hazards for people being there, and there are worries, obviously, for us as community members, just going about their own businesses, notice or whatever. So we do take this issue very seriously on the committee, and I will write to the Cabinet member and raise the points that members have raised and ask him to respond and invite him to the committee as necessary.
I just wanted to highlight the public space protection laws. Absolutely, is a power that we have, and it was appropriate to make sure it's included in the report. But there is the government do caution the use of them when it becomes used with the begging. So we are absolutely certain it's not actually being used to penalise vulnerable people. And the part of the reason we've had the fortnightly tasking meeting now in place is that when the issue around begging around the city centre came up, it was the decision made that we would look at begging as a clause in the PSPO. I know this is different circumstances around traffic lights, and it is a power that we can use, but I just wanted to highlight that particular.
There's a note in the report, so
Yes,
I do something to say that, but I think we need to have this dialogue with council members and just say what's the policy response, because there do seem to be mechanisms which could tackle this, and it is a rather special circumstance. I think a few years ago this wasn't happening, was it? We didn't have this, and we need to tackle the new circumstances. Councillor,
Yeah, just on conclusion on what you said. I think actually absolutely just needs to be taken now, because as thank you again, Councillor Sharp, for bringing this to committee. Now that we have actually discussed this publicly in a public committee, if God forbid anything was to happen to one of these individuals, I mean, that's going to make us look really, really bad. So I do hope that the cabinet member takes this very, very seriously and, actually does have to, these people, get the support that they need. Thank you.
okay, and of course we can't compel the government to come to this committee because we're obviously a regulatory committee rather than policy committee. But of course, there's a crossover, there's a grey area, and I'm sure he'll be happy to work with us on this issue as he is with the council. Sure.
Yeah, it's only very quick one to you. As there's just been said, I think we need to make sure these people who are actually doing the begging, whatever you want to call it, are looked at, because they're so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
just be coming down heavy on them. It's got to be on everybody, especially if you control.
and I think all colleagues have made that point, really. We are very concerned about on saying the exploitation, very aware of that. But it's getting at a response which assists, people who are caught up in this, but also gets the people who are profiting from it, really. That's the issue. And on that basis, I think we'll have a useful conversation with the cabinet member. So thank you very much, colleagues, for that. The recommendation is to note the report. I will act on what you've said in terms of contacting the cabinet member by letter, by invitation. So can we note the report?
Chair, can I still get someone back in February?
Yes, okay, but because obviously, yes, we'd like to do this before the new council.
Yeah, before we are.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Brennan.
Chair, it would also be good to look at the change into action. Well, the cabinet member's been doing.
Yeah.
On begging, get some information from the committee on that.
Okay, thanks very much for that point, Councillor Brennan. So I will, I'll pick up those points when I write to the cabinet member. And I'll also look at getting this back to February committee for reports on this. Thank you very much, everybody, for that. Okay, next item, unauthorised encampments update report. Mark Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very conscious we had a conversation very recently on this. This is really an update report on that conversation. As committee is aware that we've had a transit site that's been operational since November 2020. I think the last time I spoke to committee members, we had difficulties around that site in that it had been taken over by a group, and we were struggling to get the vacant possession so that we could repair that site. I'm pleased to report now that about a week and a half ago, I think it was 2 weeks this Friday, we have now recovered that site, and it's been secured at the moment and awaiting repair so that we can bring it back into use. And we're pushing our colleagues in the Civico, etc., to get those repairs done ASAP. You'll also be aware that we have another small site, which is Aston Brook Street, 4 pitches, and we're trying to try to develop on that. I've got my colleague here, Guy Chorley from Housing, who can give you a little update on that. But again, we're struggling with the monies on that side, but we want to bring that one into use, and we're awaiting development. At 5, there's a graphical representation of the number of unauthorised encampments that we've had across the city. You will note that it did drop during the pandemic. We did follow the government's advice on having a number of unauthorised encampments not evicting through the pandemic because we didn't want people moving around the country. So that had been complied with, but it did mean that we only had 28 unauthorised encampments in 2020-21. But as you can see, we've had quite a few so far this year. We're up to 31 at the moment, and we have a number of them in the parks as I speak to you at the moment. The one thing that I personally would recommend to you, Chair, and the committee, is that this strategy of having the transit sites, although it is difficult for officers and it's difficult for ourselves, it does remove the residents from the problem and it does protect the parks. So we were getting Section 62 notices from the police. They were rapidly going to a facility that had water and toilets, and yes, it caused a few problems within ourselves and our resource base. But the reality is it did remove a lot of residents from the stresses, and I think that has to be seen as a success. Again, we're trying to work on trying to resolve the issues around the third site that we have in the city, Tameside Drive, and we're still awaiting some advice from barristers on that. If I can draw your attention to 6.5, there is a GTAA, which is a Gypsum and Traveller Accommodation Assessment, which is undertaken by our planning colleagues, and it fits into the wider Birmingham Development Plan. The GTAA has identified that we should have somewhere in the region of 20 permanent pitches within the site, within the city. And you can see that they're suggesting between 2018 and 2023 we should have 15, and that further ones are brought on to meet some demand. And we are seeing some demand for permanent pitches, but at the moment we don't have anything firm coming through from planning, who aren't here today, unfortunately. We're not seeing anything coming through at the moment on permanent pitches. And actually some of our problems is we don't have any permanent offers. So that's worthy of note, and that is contained in the Birmingham Development Plan. In addition to that, the GTAA has identified that if we could bring on Proctor Street, which we have done, 15 pitches, Aston Brook Street at 4 pitches, and Tameside Drive, somewhere in the region of 15 pitches as well, then that would meet the need for transit provision within the city. But at the moment, we've only got Proctor Street and Aston Brook Street, and that's unsatisfactory. And again, we need to move forward on that. So that's a quick answer through the report. I'm happy to take any questions. As I say, my colleagues guys here from housing, if there's any other questions, then I can't answer you.
Yeah, welcome to the meeting, Guy. Thank you very much for being on today, because we do appreciate the connection with housing is an issue, and resourcing the repairs and the rest of that. So I'm very keen to see that happen, obviously, for the reasons Mark has outlined, because this strategy has given us an ability in the past to deal with authorising councils, particularly in parks and so on, more expeditiously than happened previously. And it's a problem that I certainly have in mind all the time. I'm very conscious of it as a ward councillor. And I have arranged with Councillor Shabrana a visit on November the 29th to see the sites. So I'm keen to have that dialogue with her about how soon we can get back to where we were with the 2 functioning sites. And I appreciate it's not easy given the damage during the summer, but it is a really pressing issue for members, as you understand, I'm sure. Do you want to say anything at this time?
Only that I totally agree that the delay since Mark's team secured the site of Proctor Street to getting contractors mobilised has not been acceptable. It's not been appropriate. So I will be escalating that to the group MD at Civica. It seems to be just coming down to somebody authorising the order. So I'll take that back and ensure and hopefully target that by the time 29th comes along, that those repairs will be completed and that site will be operational. The other issue, of course, is bringing Aston Brook Street on board. And the original earmark budget to do that, I've been advised isn't available, but I've instructed finance colleagues to go away and find where that capital money is going to come from, because we have committed to do it. We're required to do it under, as Mark said, under the GTAA. So we'll be getting that sorted.
Thank you very much for that. Colleagues, any points?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mark, for the report. I'd just like to ask, I'm sure we get reports again in future, obviously, because the situation is always evolving and changing, and it's an ever-evolving story. I'm sure we'd be interested to see what future developments we have. And since I'm seeing lots, I'd also just like to ask if we could have just an update on if it would be possible to get any park defences at all. I noticed in Swanshurst Park in Bilsey there are some logs which have been recently installed, and I'm sure there's more that can be done there, but it's something that's better than nothing. In my ward, the only fence is pretty much a wooden fence, which is very easy to get through. There are some barriers, but they can just go around those. So residents, I think, in all the green spaces across the city, if they've got them near to them, they want more defences. So I would be grateful if that could be possibly looked at.
Councillor Leddy?
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to go on record of thanking Mr. Croxford and in particular the enforcement officers. Bill Peck, is second to none in my books. He has a very difficult task, but yet still builds up a very good relationship with the travelling community and with members as well, Chair. So I think some praise when it's needed. Go back and tell him. Mentioned in dispatches.
And I'm sure we will echo that. We know the hard work that's done, particularly when there is an issue in our wards on a particular part. Any other points members want to make? Just to say that I'm very much alive to the point Councillor Higgs has made about heart defences. I have actually written to Darren Share, Head of Parks, about this point. Perhaps those logs in Swanhurst are in response to that. But I did say to him that I thought there ought to be a review of all parks actually, which have had this problem, to see where the defences could be improved. So not just my own ward. And I think I do need to follow that up and just see what else has happened. There's a cost involved, obviously, which may not be budgeted for, but I just think it may save us a lot of other cost if we can possibly make some tweaks to the particular defences in particular recreation grounds and parks. So it's well worth looking at. I know Darren is sympathetic to this, but there is a bit of a dialogue going on there informally. But again, we can bring a further report to the committee. It's a bit of a standing item, this really, understandably, because of the difficulties we've had.
Chair, if I'm right, thank you for your comments. I'll pass on your thanks to Bill and Dave because they both go out and they were out the weekend as well, so I met some things on Manford and other stuff. So thank you so much for saying that. Chair, if I might propose that bring a formal report into January's committee and maybe just do an update report for the December briefing.
Yeah.
Because we have got some other irons in the fire and we'll get this due to see it in the next term.
Yes, I think agree, and I can then forward that. Obviously,
and we'll put it on a 2 months so
my site visit with Cameron. Okay, so we'll do that. Yeah, we'll be back on the report. Keep in touch with us. Okay, anything else that you want to raise? Okay, thank you very much. I thank Housing particularly for being here today. That's very helpful. Both departments need to obviously deal with this issue. Okay. Can I ask members to note the report? Really, thank you. So we're on to your normal reports and regulation and enforcement activity. Again, as you know, we've got it's really for you to pick out any highlights you want information on or comment on. We don't necessarily need the detail repeated.
Just give a brief overview, just to say, as the committee can tell from the report, we're still seeing a significant level of activity that's carried out from during the pandemic as well. And that's right across the board in all of the regulatory services that we are seeing increased demand for our services. I'd also just point out, because I know it's often asked, we are still seeing increased death as well. And COVID deaths are continuing at that area. We will probably be somewhere between the normal annual rate, which was probably last seen in 2019, and the 2020 very much increased rate for this year. So just to sort of give you that overview, demand and service is still there. We are pretty much back to full services now. There's very little that isn't being done. So the fact that, like business as usual, I'm not sure that ever be back to business as usual as was. And I think it's just really a question of if there's any detail and responses I include in the report or to ask them, please just let us know. it's divided up into service areas for that benefit. If you've got any detailed questions, I would see the head of service that area.
Yeah.
So I think it's appendix 1 is where you get all the information shared and gives you the open tables. I'm expecting again an increase of activity.
So appendix 1, anything on page 3 of that? 4. You've got it by code advantages. Is it there? 5.
Chair, probably just to point out, because obviously now under food hygiene and 5 there, we are now back into our food law enforcement programme, and we have to catch up over the next 18 months as set by the Food Standards Agency, which will continue. That is going to be quite a demand on the service, as you probably understand. But we are at the moment to set out to do, but we're in early days because it only was from the end of October when we went into this stage 2.
Chair, I think that might be another thing that we can bring to the briefing for next week. Just to show what the demand is. What's happened is the food programme has fallen across the country, so there is no food programme. So what the FSA have recategorised how they want inspections done to get up to date, and then they will introduce whatever is going to be the new format of the programme. Our intent is to get up to date at the end deadline, which is in 2023. So what we've got to do is do all of the do the enforcement that we need to do, and we'll be up to date, and then the Food Standards Agency during the period will consult on a new programme, and then that's what we'll have to keep up to date going forward. So it's the recovery programme that we're trying to deliver at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, at one point, this was being overseen by the CLT. Is that still the case? Because at the end of the day, I believe that some of the failings of the service, and I'm using words that I shouldn't really use, I suppose, but were due to budget constraints placed upon this committee. And if it hadn't have been for the Food Standards Agency's critical report, nothing would have got done. And miraculously, money became available for you to employ additional officers. So is it still at corporate level?
Chair, it is. I think not least because the FSA writes to the chief executive every time they are instructing there. We put it down as a strategic risk also in the strategic risk register, which we update on a quarterly basis, I think, for the actual site. I think that's the one that we're keeping a very watchful eye, and we are asked to report. It's in the delivery plan, and we're asked to report monthly if there's any changes to that. So it is seen in a number of different ways, and I don't envisage that changing in any time soon. We're under the microscope with the service and the authority as well.
Thanks for that. Page 6, we've got health and safety, animal welfare. 7, unauthorised campus, which we've got some good conversation about, and then we're on to licensing activity, and then taxi licensing and other areas. Trading standards, page 10. And then the 11. And then you've got registration, service details.
Chair, can I just make one mention of the money lenders in, not in sort of individuals, but we did have someone taken quite seriously ill on a warrant to be exercised out of the city. But due to the actions of the team who were with that gentleman, they effectively saved his life because he ended up had a heart attack and required a very serious operation. I just thought we should be aware that that's something that's calibre some of the staff you've got who actually stopped what they were doing. The ambulance was going to take an hour and a half, and they rushed the their colleague to hospital, and his life was saved as a result. So just something for you to do there.
Chair, in such circumstances, is it possible that the chair, on behalf of the committee, can write letters to each member of the team and to thank them? I think something like that needs to be recognised.
Yes. So, well, the committee will formally note their thanks to the staff members involved, and I will action that to the sporting director. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. High behaviour, of course. Okay, anything on registration?
This is service under pressure. I think that's probably what we will say. We've still got the backlogs in births, we've still got high levels of deaths occurring. And if you look at the page on there, on page 58 of 82, page 12 of the appendix, you will actually see that we are experiencing higher deaths during July, August, and September of this year than last year. And that may be a surprise to some. That's the level of deaths happening, and that's squeezing the service. I think is the best way to do it.
Okay, anything else on any of the items in the report, colleagues? If not, can the report be noted, please? Agree?
Noted.
Thank you very much. So you then have prosecutions and cautions. Anything you want to draw attention to them?
Not particularly, Chair. I think you can just see that they're still happening, even though some of our larger cases are taking their time to get to court. We are actually stymied by the availability of courts, and they are struggling because there's much bigger area required, as you will know, Chair, in your tribunal work, that you actually need bigger facilities, and that's delaying everything. But there's still a lot of work going on. You're seeing a lot of issues there, and I think that it's we're doing our best to keep those up. They're backing up, and I think we're just a bit worried about that. I think in the long run.
Yeah, a lot of delays in the court system.
Yeah,
well.
yeah, that's what I think. It's the court system. I think that puts pressure on our legal team, puts pressure on our own officers as well.
Anything colleagues want to pick up on this report? No, okay. Okay, can we let the report? Thanks, obviously, to the officers for continuing work on this. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are on to Chair's Authority report, which is the logs, the actions that are taken on your behalf between committee. Do we know the report? Agree. Thank you. Date and time next meeting. We have the briefing, the online briefing December 1st. So obviously we'll bring various items to that, as we mentioned, and then full committee on the 9th of February. And I've had no other urgent business notified to me. No. So I move under 16, in an urgent situation during meetings, the chair jointly will be able to, as authority to act on behalf of the committee. Is that agreed? Very good. Thank you very much. And then, all right, they're not presented physically, so okay. So that is the last item. So, colleagues, we do need to note those private minutes. It's a bit difficult to do that though if we haven't seen them. Yes, right. Okay, we're now going to end the stream session, so that's the end of the public session.